What up, y'all? It's your boy Dreadhawk.
And this your girl Cash.
We back with another video, y'all.
Yes, we are.
We got Mr. Nightmare, the most horrific things that happened on Friday the 13th. You know, people always been scared of Friday the 13th and stuff when they come around.
Yep. I used to always think it's like a bad luck day. Like,
yeah, that's something gonna happen.
13th, and you know, to be honest, nothing never happened. Like,
but something's gonna happen right here, probably, most likely, by Mr. Nightmare. Make sure y'all hit the subscribe button, hit that bell, so y'all know we dropping these videos. Let's get into it.
I don't know what one of those.
Friday the 13th has long been considered a date cursed with bad luck.
Yep.
It's largely been a date that people look at as an excuse to do scary-themed activities like binging scary movies. But this is the first year since 2017 that Friday the 13th falls in October. So for this video, we're looking at some of the most terrifying events that have actually taken place on the notorious day of bad luck. Tupac Shakur, better known as a stage name simply as Tupac, was an American rapper widely considered to be one of the most influential and successful rappers of all time. Tupac was arguably responsible for some of the most memorable rap verses in history. And while much of his notoriety came about after his shocking death in the mid-1990s, he's still remembered and talked about today. On the night of September 7th, 1996, Tupac was in Las Vegas celebrating his business partner's birthday. One night while there, he attended the Bruce Seldon vs. Mike Tyson boxing match with Suge Knight at the MGM Grand. Later that night at about 11:15 p.m., while at a stoplight, a white four-door Cadillac sedan pulled up to the passenger side of Tupac's vehicle, and an occupant rapidly fired into the car. He was hit 4 times, once in the arm, once in the thigh, and twice in the chest, with one bullet entering his right lung. Tupac succumbed to his injuries 6 days later on September 13th, which was a Friday. The case went unresolved, with people suspecting his friend Suge Knight and even rapper Biggie Smalls of the murder. But recently, on September 29th, 2023, 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis was charged in the killing of Tupac. Dwayne is not accused of being the one to pull the trigger that night in Las Vegas. But he is, however, being accused of having been the one to call the hit on Tupac. The trial is still currently in progress.
Damn, after that long?
A lot of people refuse to fly on Friday the 13th. And while that may come down to pure superstition among some people, there have been a few tragedies in the air on this day. In October 1972, on Friday the 13th, a plane heading to Chile was forced to crash land in the Andes Mountains. The flight was carrying 45 passengers and crew, including 19 members of the Old Christians Club rugby union team, along with their families, supporters, and friends. 3 crew members and 9 passengers died immediately. Several more died soon afterward due to the frigid temperatures and the severity of their injuries. Survivors of the crash hid the wreckage for warmth and were eventually forced to cannibalize and eat deceased passengers to survive. A rescue team was sent out, but the mission was called off after 10 days. However, 72 days after the crash, as the weather improved with the arrival of late spring, 2 survivors climbed a 4,700-meter mountain peak without gear and hiked for 10 days into Chile to seek help, traveling a total of 38 miles. The 2 men were able to alert authorities that there were still 16 survivors trapped in the mountains, leading to their rescue. But believe it or not, on the exact same Friday the 13th as this plane crash, the same exact date, was another plane crash that killed all 164 passengers and 10 flight crew. It was Aeroflot 217. The plane needed to land due to horrible weather conditions, but crashed upon landing in Russia just 3 miles away from the runway. The exact cause of the crash could not be determined, but it's speculated that it was largely to do with simply human error. Casualty-wise, it is one of the worst plane crashes in history. These incidents are incredibly rare. Perhaps there is a reason flights are cheaper on Friday the 13th. If you're not superstitious, perhaps
I was going to say that when he said it the first time. I was like, well, that'd be a good time to get him catch a flight because it's cheaper. It'd probably be cheaper.
Yeah, nobody don't.
But that make you don't want to.
Exactly after this, hearing these stories, I don't want
to, right?
But then, like I said, I never had bad luck on Friday.
Again, you think about it, probably you think something bad gonna happen. Then you make bad stuff happen.
Might just manifest that stuff, yeah.
That's crazy.
Reason flights are cheaper on Friday the 13th. If you're not superstitious, perhaps it may be worth it.
Yeah.
But now we move from the sky to the sea, looking at the Costa Concordia disaster. On Friday the 13th, January 2012, the 8-year-old Costa Cruises ship Costa Concordia just left Civitavecchia, Italy at approximately 7:18 p.m. On board were 1,022 crew members and 3,206 passengers. As the Concordia approached Giglio Island several hours later, it deviated from its standard course, moving closer to the small Tuscan island for a maritime salute, which included the cruise ship sounding its horn to show off to onlookers on the land. The Concordia had performed several in the past, but the area was known for rock outcroppings, and at some point, such a formation was noticed in the ship's path. Francesco Schettino, the captain, ordered a change in course, but allegedly, due to language issues, the Indonesian helmsman steered the boat in the opposite direction. It took a little over 10 seconds to correct the maneuver, and the boat's bow ultimately swung clear, but the stern collided with the reef at approximately 9:45 p.m. The damage had been done. The Concordia's port side had suffered a 174-foot tear. This caused the ship to list and then partially sink, landing unevenly on an underwater ledge. Although a 6-hour rescue effort brought most of the passengers ashore, 33 people died, 27 passengers, 5 crew, and later a member of the salvage team. An investigation focused on the shortcomings in the procedures followed by the Concordia's crew and the actions of the captain, Francesco, who left the ship prematurely, leaving behind about 300 passengers on board the sinking ship, most of whom were rescued by helicopters or motorboats in the area. Schettino was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison.
That's it?
Despite receiving criticism, Costa Cruises and its parent company, Carnival Corporation, didn't face criminal charges. The total cost of the disaster, including victims' compensation, refloating, towing, and scrapping costs, is estimated at $2 billion, more than 3 times the ship's original $612 million construction cost. The cruise line offered compensation to passengers to pay for all damages, including the value of the cruise. Only 1/3 of the survivors took the offer. This remains the biggest modern cruise ship catastrophe.
Wow. So you learned something, boy, with this.
Right.
David Anthony McGreevy was born in Southport, England in 1951 to Bella and Thomas McGreevy. David was the second oldest of 6 children. Since David's father was a sergeant in the British Army, a lot of his childhood was spent moving from one army base to another. This could mean that one year he was being educated in an army school in England, the next in Germany. According to David's mother, living in Germany was his happiest time. David's mother, Bella, later said she could only remember one childhood incident of concern, as David was otherwise allegedly well behaved. In 1967, 15-year-old David left school and enlisted in the Royal Navy. However, he was dismissed from the Navy in August 1971 after being court-martialed for starting a fire that destroyed a mess wardroom. David then moved back in with his parents, but around this time his life was crumbling as his fiancée broke up with him and he was fired from several jobs. For this reason, his parents became fed up with him and kicked him out. So David turned to his friend Clive Kenneth Ralph, who let him board with he and his wife, Dorothy Elsie, and their 2 small children, Paul and Dawn. Clive and Dorothy had been school friends, and there was a 5-year age gap between them. They had married in September 1968, when Dorothy was 16 and pregnant with Paul. At the time David moved in, Dorothy was pregnant with their 3rd child, Samantha, who was born on the 14th of July in 1972. With both Clive and Dorothy busy working, David acted as a babysitter for the Ralph children. He was regarded by family and neighbors, as well as the Ralphs, as a person who loved children. So what would soon happen was nothing short of unexpected and horrific. On Friday the 13th, in April 1973, Elsie was picked up from work by Clive, who had left home late with the children all asleep. When the couple arrived at their home, the police were already there, and they escorted them to the police station, where they were told of the horrible truth that their children had been murdered. So what happened? Well, David was known to be a heavy drinker and sometimes a violent drunk. He had gone to a nearby pub earlier that evening with a friend, and he had 7 pints of beer.
God.
The 2 men had played cards and darts, though a small altercation took place prior to leaving the pub. Clive picked David up from the pub and brought him to look after the children, while Clive went to get Elsie from work. Sometime between 10:15 and 11:15 p.m., David, while completely wasted, became infuriated with the children, beginning with the baby Samantha, who had been crying for her bottle.
Man.
David violently killed the 3 children, each in a different yet brutal manner.
Come on.
After killing the 3 children, David went down to the basement and retrieved a pickaxe to further mutilate their bodies. David was arrested by police at 3:50 a.m., walking on a road near the Ralphs' home. Upon his arrest, David initially denied any responsibility, but several hours later, he admitted to the murders, with his only explained reasoning disgustingly being simply that the baby was crying.
Man, you just
David was
sick.
sentenced to multiple life sentences with
sick.
minimums of 20 years. And in prison, he was subjected to frequent abuse by other prisoners.
Good.
He spent most of his 45 years behind bars in protected conditions. In December,
I think people like that should not be in no protective custody and none of that. You get what you get. You did them kids wrong.
Right.
You're trying to blame it on the crying and everything like that because you can't handle your alcohol.
You
went
handle
crazy.
Your damn alcohol. Did they know he was drunk or they didn't when he had?
I don't know.
I think they had, no. I don't think they had said that.
Yeah, 7, man. Come on, man.
For 2018, a parole board cleared David for
That's
release,
him right there?
declaring that he had changed significantly and he was no longer a risk.
You cleared him for release?
There's bound to be anywhere from 1 to 3 Friday the 13th each year. If you are superstitious and choose to be more low-key on this inevitable date in an attempt to escape any bad luck, you may end up like Daz Baxter. On Friday the 13th in 1976, Daz decided to just stay in the bed for the day to avoid anything bad happening, only to be killed when the floor of his apartment block collapsed under him.
Damn, you ain't escaping.
There's countless other stories and examples of misfortune and downright tragedy that's happened on Friday the 13th, but this could be said for literally every other date on the calendar. At the end of the day, maybe it's just another day.
Dang. Like we say too, that he manifested that to happen. He was thinking probably that day before and that day I'm gonna just stay home so nothing will happen. But in your mind you was thinking something happened.
Exactly. So that's why the damn floor collapsed from underneath you. Because that, like on Friday, it's just like a regular day to me.
Regular day. So you start thinking about it and you
because like some people that Friday the 13th is a bad luck day.
Be careful.
Be careful. Be careful on the road. Be careful. Just be careful. But I never thought about it. Every time I hit Friday the 13th coming up, I was like, well, okay. It's just another day. But let us know down in the comment section below if y'all have bad luck on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I want to know.
But these stories was crazy.
All those are crazy for real. Like you really learned something on this video.
Like what?
It's a nightmare. From the Tupac thing. I recently heard about that man get locked up though.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
All those stories from the ship.
Yep, the ship.
2 planes crashing at the same time.
And the people survived for that long.
The other one killed 164 people or something. That's crazy. I should say, let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What other videos y'all want to see? If you're still here, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. We appreciate the support. Love y'all. We catch y'all next video.
Next time.